Hello, YouTube. It is Ranee B, and I'm back to bring you some more of that homicidal tea. We're going to be talking about murders. We're going to be talking about missing persons. We're going to be talking about trials, tribulations, and executions. And I don't know why I get so excited when I say that part. Anyway, y'all can feel free to comment if you are a psychiatrist and let me know what's wrong with me. Other than that, let's just get to the story. As usual, I'd like for you guys to like and subscribe. I know that helps, and I'm still trying to figure out that part, but I'm sure it'll be good eventually for all of us. I don't know. Anyway, let's just get into the story, and I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks. Today, we're going to be talking about Denise O'Neill. She was a girl. She had just gotten out of college. She got her little bachelor's degree in English, and she just graduated and got her master's degree, and she was going to teach English to students in Florida. And I don't know if I said her name yet. Her name is Miss Denise O'Neill. She's a real sweet girl. And, you know, she worked waitress at a place called The Breakers in Palm Beach. And I actually have experience with that hotel, and it's a resort, and it is nice. Oh, it's so nice. And it's like world-class dining and atmosphere. So this wasn't just a place that, you know, just randos would just walk into, you know. So she would have had a lot of really good clientele and made really good money there too, I'm sure. But she had never missed a day into the 2.5 years that she had worked there. So when her employer contacted the police whenever that she hadn't shown up to work because it was so out of character. And, okay, gotta stop sniffling. I gotta blow my nose real quick. I have to redo my nose. But, so, back to the story. They went to her apartment, and her car was missing, but there were no signs of a break-in, which was strange. So they were like, well, maybe she just took off. She's, you know, of age. She's allowed to do whatever she wants. But there was a clue on the answering machine. And it turns out it was her bank saying that there was some unusual spending activity on one of her cards. Later on that afternoon, police found Denise's car in a parking lot across the street from her apartment. And that immediately felt that someone else must have been in that car, because she was a very, very neat person. And the car was a wreck. But there was a pink jacket that belonged to Denise that was on the back seat. And there were 2 soda bottles that were on the floor. There was a cigarette butt on the floor. She didn't smoke. But there was sand all over the right rear floor mats. And that's not uncommon in Florida. I mean, come on, there's sand everywhere. But it wasn't the kind of normal sand. It wasn't beach sand. It wasn't black mud sand. It was more of like a coarse brown sand, like a limey sand. And kind of limestone is what they said it was. So they dusted the entire car inside and out, and there were prints all over. They recovered a total of 20. And they were inside the car, inside the vehicle, inside the trunk, everywhere. On the night that Denise went missing, it was revealed that she had bought a pair of sneakers for work. And so that was at 2:30. She failed to show up to work at 5:30. So that started the timeline. Somewhere in there, that window, something must have happened to her. And that was one of their best pieces of evidence, because it gave them a time frame. No one at Denise's apartment had seen or heard anything suspicious. But then there was a call that came into 911 that when someone had found a body. And the body was very visible to the neighbor. And they looked over and they saw it was wrapped up in a large pink sheet. So it made it super highly visible. Dental records confirmed that it was indeed Miss O'Neill. And so their missing persons case at that point had turned into a homicide investigation. That's always kind of a bummer. Even though we watch these shows, we know it's a murder investigation. But still, I don't know about you guys, but whenever I watch them and they say, well, this is a homicide investigation now, there's part of me that's like, oh, man. I mean, it's a murder show. What do you, anyway, I don't know. I think that sometime I guess they're going to surprise me and be like, we found her. She's alive. Everything's fine. Optimist much? But then I'm a true crime junkie. So what does that mean? There's a whole slew of specialists in psychiatry that can figure this out. Anyway. Whenever they recovered the body was tied up with several implements. So they had shoestrings, they had a belt, they had a dog leash, all sorts of stuff. And then in particular that caught their interest was a weird cord, real weird. And it had this big old stone looking thing at the end of it. And they didn't know what it was. So, of course, as good forensic specialists do, they bag everything and send it off to the crime lab. The medical examiner determined that the cause of death for Miss O'Neill was asphyxiation and strangulation. And they also found evidence that she had been violated. So it was not just a homicide, it was a brutal homicide. So they had to make sure that they got this guy, because it was somebody with, usually these kind of crimes don't just stick with one. And unfortunately, it becomes more of a serial type of event. So they knew that they had a sicko on their hands. But they were able to get a swab from the victim and analyze the DNA profile. What they were really puzzled about was the cord that was used to tie up the body in the bed sheet around the body. And it was an electrical cord that was really suspicious. They had no idea what it was. And then actually it was one of the researchers that identified it and said, that's a heat rock. That's something that you use on a cold-blooded animal that keeps it warm, and like a pet snake. They investigators also found some unusual items on the sheet, like a lot of black hairs, and microscopic examination showed that these hairs were actually from a dog. So that was real bizarre, because she didn't have a dog. So that was another check in the forensics channel that, gave them a place to start to look for somebody that had an interest in reptiles and had a pup, or knew someone that had a pup. The sand found in her car, it was similar to sand in the area that was found near her body. And the sand it was obviously it was proof that Denise's body had been transported in her car, and investigators knew that Denise had been abducted sometime between 2:30 and 5:30 on that day. Her neighbor said that she didn't see or hear anything suspicious, and a different one said that they didn't see or hear anything, but someone had used her ATM card, and they withdrew $700 from her checking account. Unfortunately, the cameras at this ATM couldn't be used to identify the person. So they actually went ahead and put it on the local newscast to see if anybody could recognize or, seen anybody at this ATM that they knew or anything. But what really caught investigators' eyes was that on the local newscasts, there was one individual that kept popping up over and over, over and over. And his behavior really struck the investigators as odd. It's like he wanted to be in front of the camera. Is this another one of those guys like Michael Curry? Oh my gosh, this is attention seekers. Crazy. Anyway, if you don't know about Michael Curry, that's in my other video. That guy, wow, I'm still like floored over him. In an interview that they gave whenever they found her body, was one of the guys was outside, and his name was Louis Caballero, and he was her next door neighbor. And when they went to interview him, he wasn't home, but they heard a dog barking in his house. Uh-oh, clue number one. And the investigator said that he knocked on the door and heard the dog barking. He looked through and he could see that the dog was a dark color. And it looked kind of like a black chow, but I don't know. One of his neighbors was outside downstairs, and they said, hey, do you know this guy up here? And he goes, the only guy I know is upstairs, the guy that lives up there that has the boa constrictor and the black chow. What? Pardon? Come again, sir? Yeah. Black chow, dog hair, black. Boa constrictor, rock, heating element. Yeah, 2 and 2. I started putting the numbers together. He didn't say it directly, but whenever they interviewed Louis Caballero, he said he didn't really like her. Said she was kind of uppity. Said she was snooty. And he said he really never talked to her other than just to say hello. He had a phone bill, though, that his friends had actually told investigators about once they started diving more into Louis, saying that he owed about $6,000 from phone sex lines. Winner, chicken dinner. That's a guy I want to date. But he was behind on his rent. He was about to get evicted, and he needed some money fast. So what struck the investigators as odd is that whenever they did a search of his apartment, the kind of porn they found was the really heavy, and I don't care about porn, dude. Man, you watch your porn, have fun. But some of this sick shit that's out there, dude, get real. I mean, come on. Porn is porn, but whenever you're getting into like violence and, like sexual trauma and things like that, come on. Seriously. Whenever they went inside his apartment, because they obviously had enough to get a search warrant from that they found Denise's prints everywhere. So, yeah. But they discovered other clues too. And then whenever they walked into the bedroom area, they found a pair of heat rocks, just like the ones that were found around her body. They also found a pair of black men's sneakers in Caballero's closet that didn't have shoelaces. Now, do you remember earlier whenever I said that there were some different ties around her body, such as cords, belts, shoelaces? Yeah, they matched those shoes. So this isn't looking good for Caballero. There's also a huge reddish brown stain on the carpet. Guys, I mean, why would you do this in your house, of all places, too? I just don't understand. I mean, maybe it's because criminals, there's a lot of them that are really smart, but some of them that are really dumb. And I don't understand why you do all this in your own house. Or you wouldn't at least put something down to cover it, you know? But, you know, maybe that's why I'm not a murderer. Because when you have that kind of forethought, you also have the forethought enough to say, hey, I shouldn't do this because it's murder. And then that. Anyway. So, to be sure, the investigators turned off the lights and they used luminol. Do you remember when luminol first came on the scene? I remember that when they first started talking about it. It was like called Blue Star or something. And I thought that was the coolest thing I'd ever heard of. Oh my gosh, luminol. Oh my gosh, it was so cool. And they turn off the lights on Forensic Files or New Detectives and it would glow and it'd be like, yeah. I still get that way, but anyway. So they turned out the lights and it glowed like a Christmas tree. But what was freaky was that there was the line of what looked like to be human buttocks that were in a print on the floor. Well, right behind where those prints had been made by somebody, underneath a box was Denise's gym membership ID. So they really believe that she had the forethought to put her card in there to prove that she'd been there, you know. And there's other stories where it talks about how victims will touch everything and make sure that they have a definite link there with their DNA and or fingerprints. And that's exactly what she was doing. She must have had her, like, been close enough to her wallet or something to grab that and put it under there, because there was no doubt that she was in that apartment at that point, even though she also had her fingerprints everywhere as well. But we'll get to that. But they knew that she had also been wearing a blue colored garment that had been cut, and they found these blue colored fibers on some scissors that were located in his apartment as well. And so the forensics team just did a fantastic job in gathering all this evidence. It was insane about how good of a job that they did with all the... They did that in the episode of Forensic Files that I saw. They did this thing where it's tape scraping. It's where they get the evidence and then they use, like, it looks like a... what does it look like? It looks like a gigantic razor blade, and they just scrape whatever it is, and then they put it under a scanning electron microscope, and it is the absolute wildest thing on the planet. Like, they can tell, like, fibers that are... I would never know what these things are, but they, like, do cross sections and see what the shapes are, and it turns out a lot of times that cars have triangular fibers. I didn't even know there were shapes of fibers, but apparently that is. And in this case, these blue fibers were part of some of the garments that Denise was wearing that were ensnared in this set of scissors they found. So that's crazy as well. But anyway, they have Lewis downtown. So they searched his apartment and everything. And so detectives said, you know, did you know her that well? And he said, no. And he said, has she ever been in your apartment? He said, no. And then he said, have you ever had detailed her vehicle? You know, he was giving him reasons to have his fingerprints all inside her vehicle. And if he'd helped her out by detailing her vehicle or something, well, that would make sense. So when they asked him this, he said, no, I haven't. I've never touched her stuff. I've never been in her apartment. She's never been in mine. I don't know what you're talking about. Absolutely locking himself to a story that contradicted all of the evidence. So it's insane how these people have so much forethought in murdering someone, but then they don't even think about the fact that they're pigeonholing themselves into a story that the detectives are going to completely use against them. So they're not very bright all the time. When they started facing him with the evidence, Caballero absolutely changed the story completely. he said, "Oh, no, yeah, I was not alone, and there was a accomplice there. The real killer is my friend. He's 19. His name's Isaac Brown." And yeah, okay. So thanks for the other tip, because we're gonna bring your friend in and we're gonna compare y'all's story. So they bring in Isaac. Isaac says that Caballero had been talking about robbing Denise for months, and that he said, "I need to hit someone up because I need my money from rent. I need to keep my sex line workers paid. So I need to come on some money." So that's exactly what he did by robbing Denise. And so then you have Isaac, and then you have Lewis, and they're pointing the fingers at each other. So at this point, the detectives decided they needed to make a deal with the devil, basically, and pick which guy they were going to side with, because one of them needed to testify against the other. So they needed one of them to plead out and get the best deal that they could. But they found that Brown's prints were found on the soda bottle, and it was proof that he was involved. And despite Brown and Caballero's conflicting versions of the stories of what happened, their stories were identical on one count, that they had breakfast together. And they did it after dumping her body. So they kill someone, dump the body, and then, I'm hungry. Let's go get something to eat. That's so bizarre to me. And I mean, y'all are my friends. We talk about this stuff. Have you ever noticed that, like, when people confess to crimes, or they're doing their talking to the investigators or whatnot, that they fall asleep sometimes when the investigators walk out, or like the investigators will bring them something in to eat and drink, and they'll just be steady munching and drinking and stuff. I mean, like, if I hit a squirrel in my car, I'm freaked out so bad that I can't eat for like 10 minutes. I don't know. That's a bad comparison, but you get what I'm saying. I don't know how these people are so blasé after murdering someone. It just blows my mind. And again, I think it goes back to that whole empathy thing, because as true crime fans, we are very curious by nature, and also understanding of the victims' families and whatnot, and also understanding of some of the perpetrators. And there's been a few cases where I've been like, I can understand that guy never had a chance. Doesn't make it right, but I can understand where he's coming from. So I can empathize with both sides, but I can't understand how some of these people can just, let's go eat. Fun. But anyway, back to the story. They go to IHOP off of 441 in the city of Tamarack. I think I'm saying that right. I hope I am. Apologies if I'm not. And the investigators tracked it down to where they went. And when they asked the waitress to see if they could get a receipt, I don't know really where they were going with this, but you find out, because the receipt said there were 3 people. 3. Count them. 1, 2, 3. Thought it was just you two bros. Who's this third guy that you're not telling us about? And they started fitting even more and more of the evidence together, because the belt that was used to tie the bed sheet around Denise's body was something like a 36 belt. Well, oh boy, Isaac was too skinny. There's no way that could be his belt. Well, Lewis was too pudgy. There's no way that could be his belt. So who is this third person, and why is it that he hasn't come up yet? So they had to start investigating that. Investigators, they had 2 men in custody, and each man is identifying the other as the killer. So what's an investigator to do? Because at this point now, they know that the defense can call on this third person and say, he's the real killer, enough to put doubt in the minds of the jury. And without a reasonable doubt is the usual rule of thumb. So to make their case solid, they're going to have to find this guy. And when they did a background check on Lewis, they found that he was arrested with an accomplice by the name of Robert Messer. Well, his fingerprints were on file. Guess what? Boom. Matched. He was in the car too. Oh, okay. Well, cool. Oh my goodness. So he was on the trunk, actually. So when the police arrested Messer, he too denied any involvement. And he says, but I can't tell you that I was the killer, but I can tell you that I was there. Messer said that he did nothing, but that Caballero and Brown were both involved. And that he said that he was in the living room while Caballero and Brown violated Miss O'Neill. So he said he didn't, he was very distancing of himself, saying, well, I didn't have anything to do with this. I just heard everything, which is convenient. But all three men were charged. And when the DNA results came back, it was only tied to Luis Caballero. So that was, that's the only person they could charge that part on it. But then whenever they asked about the other guys about what had led up to this, they said that Caballero planned the attack on Denise after she was doing her laundry, and that she had come back up from the laundry room. And as she was making her way into her apartment, Luis pushed her into her apartment and said, where's your purse? And she said, it's right there. And she just pled for her life. Don't hurt me. Don't hurt me. Take whatever you want. So Isaac Brown was in the apartment as Luis Caballero brought Denise back over there after he had ambushed her as she was coming back from the laundry room. And he had forced her to give him her pen. And so he said to Isaac Brown, you watch her and I'll be back. So that's when he picked up Robert Messer. And so as they were in there, Denise had somehow gotten her gym card and slipped it under that cardboard box. That's how they were able to definitively link her to that room, like I said earlier, along with her fingerprints. But she wanted to make sure that she had proof that she was there. So she knew that she had to tie herself to that location. And so that was her forethought in doing so. But whenever they got back, they said that Caballero returned with Messer and that they had used electrical cords from the heat rocks to tie up and strangle her to death. And that this was the point that the assault happened, was post-mortem. Okay, but whatever. They also used belts and shoelaces, and they used the belt from Robert Messer because he was the one that was a size 36. Okay, I told you guys I don't like to do my eyelashes on camera. I don't think that YouTube has enough gigabytes of storage space for it because it takes me so long. You have no idea. You have no idea. Like, whenever I have more of y'all that like me and follow me, because I don't want to embarrass myself for just a few people. But yeah, I'll do an outtakes video because it's funny to the point of something sold on eBay or something's recommended for me on eBay. What's up? Yeah, so I'll do an outtakes video because the amount of time it takes me to do my eyebrows and to do my lashes, it's funny. Like, why would you, I started doing my eyelashes because I wanted to save time. Go figure. Now I'm almost late every day to work because of my eyelashes. Just kidding. I'm not late to work ever. Anyway. So, but where were we? They had noticed that the shoelaces, the electrical cords, everything matched everything in Caballero's apartment, and that the three had later gone to breakfast and whatnot. Robert Messer was tried first, and he was convicted of manslaughter, and he was sentenced to 15 years. Isaac Brown was convicted of 5 counts, including second-degree murder, and chances are that's where he'll die in prison. He has made a little good out of his conviction, I guess, if you can say. I don't know. I don't have a lot of empathy for the guy. I have a lot of empathy for some things, but no, this isn't one of them. And he says that he wants his story to be a cautionary tale and that not to make the same mistakes that he made. Well, yeah, no shit. I mean, you're not really doing a public service by telling me not to murder people, dude. I got that. Thanks. The investigators said that Denise O'Neill stuck with them like his whole tenure. The investigator said that he really feels like justice was brought by these monsters actually being sent away, and that he's really, really, really glad that justice got to be served because he never got her out of his head. And I'm sure that some of these victims stay with these people. I mean, I can't imagine, like, just watching some of these is one thing, but then imagine, like, living it, like, breaking the news to the families and, like, getting close to these families and having to be responsible to bring these people to justice, and wondering day after day after day if the case goes cold or if it doesn't go cold, or if the leads dry up, or if something happens with the defense or something. You know, I mean, that's got to be absolutely trying for those investigators to know that it's on their shoulders whether or not this makes it to trial, and whether or not these guys get put away, because, you know, one faulty move in the investigatory process and that evidence can be thrown out, that interview can be thrown out. So I mean, that's got to be a real trying job. Sorry, I'm not good at this either. Lipstick while you're trying to talk, it's hard. It's real hard. And it's funny because when you're doing this and you're watching yourself, you can start seeing things that you needed to do differently. Like at this point, it's the end of my look and I have no cheekbones. So we're going to add some right now. We're also going to continue to talk because this story actually isn't over. There's a postscript to this story actually. Louis Caballero died in prison not too long ago. It was around September 20th in 2013. He actually died in the prison hospital due to complications with cancer. Oh no. I can't say that I have any bit of sadness about that, except the fact that the mother wasn't able probably to sit there and watch, because I think that she was at least owed that, if that's something she wanted to do. It's almost like he didn't get enough time in prison, you know? He didn't live long enough to be executed. But Anne O'Neill, actually, that's Denise's mom, said it didn't matter to her or her husband, Larry, that Louis didn't live long enough to be executed. She said it just matters that he's dead, and that she cursed him every single day. So it could be possible that his death could bring them peace, because him still being alive and breathing air is something that I would hate every day. And I mean, it's probably not the best way to lead your life, but I don't know. I got some hate in my heart, and I'm telling you, if you kill one of my dogs, I'm coming for you. Oh my God, you have no idea. Like, no, I mean, if you hurt somebody in my family, even if you didn't kill them, you just hurt them, you best watch your ass for me, because I'm coming for you. So I couldn't imagine having somebody sitting on death row that I knew that I could like research and see his updated mugshots every year or whatnot. And no, I think it would be more of a peaceful thing to have them go ahead and pass on, even though it was a natural death. I would have rather do it myself. But, you know, I'm not trying to say I'm hateful. I'm not trying to say I'm vengeful, but I am. So anyway, that's the story of Denise O'Neill. I certainly hope that her family has come to grips with her passing, and I hope that, you know, somewhere along the line, someone could learn from Isaac's attempt at, don't do this, kids. And, you know, we never really heard from Messer. We don't know whatever happened to him, but whatever. I hope they all learn their lesson. And I'll not really say what I think because it's inflammatory. So we'll see you on the next video, and thanks. I'll talk to y'all later.